Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Catching Up with the Nerds. God, I almost messed that up. Your weekly podcast on anything and everything nerdy, and we've got a return of the Mac. Return. What? Well, you're a bit like Captain Marvel in Endgame, where you just come in when we need the assist.
Yes,
Bang,
and then
you fly through.
And then prove myself to be worthless and just skip back out. So.
Well, no, worthless. You just get the glove, you get the stones where they need to be, you know.
Yes, getting close. But it's good to be back in the pod after a little hiatus. Glad to be back.
Yes, they're all back. So as you've heard, we are joined by JC again, who is returning full fitness, just a bit like Klay Thompson, you know. Warriors basketball. If you don't know, you know. We also joined by, talking about basketball, by Dave, creator, founder, producer of the Grid and Grime podcast, Grid and Grime basketball podcast.
Stop reading from my Twitter bio.
How did you know? How did you know that I did that just before I came on? I'm not gonna lie, I legit did that. That's how much. Yep. No inspiration today. I'm just like, I just went to everyone's bios and I just went, okay, what are you about?
Okay, so I've just got mine up just in case.
Hang on. Somebody says something interesting whilst I'm going on to James's.
Yes, I am the owner, founder, and creator of the Grit and Grime podcast. You can catch us weekly on all podcast platforms talking about the NBA.
Plug it. And also joining us, James from How to Game Differently. James, I was gonna read your bio and I was gonna say James is a YouTube channel, but you're not. You're a human being, and you're here. James has a YouTube channel. You don't do podcasts just yet, do you?
I did two, and then
you did, yeah?
Nothing really happened because we're absolutely dreadful for organizing anything like this.
It's all right. Takes an army to organize these things. But anyway, your specialty is on YouTube, and you love a little bit of Twitter back and forth, and also a bunch of Instagram posts, which are always cool. I like your stuff. So James was here last week, and he's back with us. He was on the Spider-Man episodes. I also interviewed James a while back, and you know, got a lot of interesting stuff.
What the hell do you do that for?
Because I like to talk to other dads about video games and stuff, and nerdy stuff. So we need to find out who does what and how they do it. Anyway, that's enough of an intro. That's 2-3 minutes of our time there is already gone. Let's move on to what we hear about. What we hear about again? I forgot. Oh yeah,
2022.
It's 2022. The best. We're talking about the best. Well, this is what we're talking about. The best, the things we've loved the most in 2021. So we're picking one top ID, which we're going to talk about in depth. Not ID, so one thing we've read, watched, or played in 2021. That thing had to be released or made in 2021. I hope you guys had that clear. All right, cool. And it had to bring you joy, happiness, because the last couple of years have been absolutely trash for everyone. Because of some things that are happening in the world. But we thought we'll do our second episode of the year, give it a nice positive vibe and spin. And so that's the idea. That's the general topic right here. And should we go right into it? Just not waste any more time in introducing anything or anyone, or I'm had enough talking. So somebody else is going to take over. Who wants to go first? Shall we get JC to go first, because he hasn't spoken in a long time? I feel like I'm dusting the microphone. Let's go.
I am going to be rusty, and as David rightly pointed out, this may go long, so I'm going to go first.
I've got a timer on. It's 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
You've got time. The floor is yours.
I will take hand gestures when I'm supposed to stop. Exactly. So this was hard. This was really hard, because picking just one thing across all media was extremely hard. So I'm glad you let us have mentions as well. If we get to them, great. If not,
it's good you said that, because I forgot to mention that we will also be dropping a couple mentions of other things we've enjoyed, just to get them out, get them out there for people to know. Anyway, carry on.
Yep, cool. All right, so jumping into it, my top one, I've in the pod, I've tended to be like the graphic novel guy. So it's a graphic novel, it's a comic specifically, that's called Bitter Root. So this is a comic that came out actually originally in 2018. But had a run this year in 2021, so it counts. And
fine.
This year's run went from, I believe, beginning of the year all the way through August, and then concluded this run. But there's more coming. The background on this one is actually it's a comic that's launched by Image Comics. So if anybody knows anything about Image Comics, they're pretty cool because they let creators keep the rights to their comics, and this is important for this one. We'll come back to that one later. But this was launched by a guy named, or written by a guy named David F. Walker and a guy named Chuck Brown. David F. Walker is actually a Portland resident. Shout out Portland. He previously wrote on Luke Cage. He actually did a Shaft comic, and he wrote a lot on Power Man and Iron Fist, which I had not heard of, but sounds awesome actually. So it did some Marvel stuff. Chuck Brown wrote for Black Panther and The Punisher, and it's drawn by a dude named Sanford Green that did a lot of the drawing on Power Man and Iron Fist, and colored by Rico Renzi, who did the coloring for Stumptown. So why is it a big deal for me? It's a big deal because this is the first comic that made me buy monthly issues. For anybody who's not in the comic world, the way the comics come out is like you get an issue each month that you buy. It's like kind of the flimsy comics you're used to seeing. But every couple of months, they collect them into a trade paperback, which is basically they collect about 5 to 6 issues, put them into one book, and you just buy that book. I generally do that. I'm a trade paperback person. I bought the first 2 trades for this one, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Loved it so much, I instantly started buying the monthly one because it was so damn good. So what is it about? The setting is 1920s Harlem, New York, actually. Specifically, they call it the Harlem Renaissance. It's a time in the States where like a lot of art and culture was coming out of Harlem, and people really were allowed to create that culture again, right? Despite Jim Crow, there was a lot happening in the Northeast. So this is a story about a specific family in Harlem called the Sangera family. And they're basically monster hunters. So this is where it gets into kind of the genre world. They're a family that basically has been fighting monsters for years and years and years. And the catch, though, is that the monsters they fight, we start to realize, are actually infected people. The infected people have been infected by basically racism. So that's kind of the premise of the book, where the people go from having, they mention as having hatred and fear in their heart to being infected by this ancient evil that then converts them into monsters. So it's playing on the idea of like how fear and hatred lead to racism, basically. So that's kind of the premise of the book. What's incredibly cool about it is that it's about battling monsters, but it's also about family dynamics. It's about generational trauma. It's about like all these super big themes that come up. And I'll give you just some examples of how it comes out, right? So they're like fighting the monsters. The visuals are amazing. These are some of the most elaborate, like full page spreads you'll ever see. There's so much going on in each page that you could actually like flip through the book and have a great time without actually reading any text. So having said that, they are fighting monsters, and the way they do it is like the basically the leader of the family is the grandma, which is awesome, right? So she takes these roots, that's what's called bitter root, that they call a fifno. And the root, she processes it into like this serum that basically they shoot the monsters with, and that it basically takes away the evil for a time. It's not permanent. They can be reinfected again, right? So even that tracks really nicely. And so they're basically out not killing people when possible, but actually trying to cure them as much as possible. And you basically see all these scenes. Of course, as you can imagine, they have a fight against the KKK. Once again, awesome, like the illustration, everything just come across really nicely. But where it got me was when they start to find this other monster that they can't quite recognize. And the problem is this other monster that they're fighting is based on Black people being infected. And they're like, but how can Black people be infected with this thing we're fighting? And it's basically they're infected with grief, with the grief of trauma, and how that plays out into them also becoming monsters again. And they cannot find a way to cure that particular affliction, right? Because it's like, all right, it's my people. It's like, what do I do with this, right? So throughout that process, they go into different dimensions to try to find solutions. They go back and forth in time. You get these amazing backstories. And the real kicker is that it also takes this like X-Men like quality where like at the end of the book, they actually give you like a family tree because it's so many members of the family you get introduced to, they need to keep up with. And they'll have different abilities. Some of them want to go out and actually kill all the monsters. Some want to cure them. Some want to just like do other stuff. They create alliances with another family that is Chinese and has been fighting their own monsters as well. So they do a great job of world building too. So overall, there's like so many different angles to it that I feel can just kind of go on and on and on. Like they're on to I think like issue 16, and I can see it's going for a bit longer. The cool thing about it is that going forward, there's other things that really got me as well, is that it's actually been picked up by Ryan Coogler's production company. So as we all know, in Coogler we trust, man. Coogler has not delivered a turd so far, right? And so he picked it up, and get this, Regina King is connected to direct for the movie. So it's gonna happen, and it is honestly, guys, some of the best stuff I've read in a long time, because it's like it's so of the time, but also fun. It's gorgeous to look at. Cannot recommend it enough.
Wow.
The drawings look amazing. I mean, the style of it looks so. It reminds me of the other series, the actual series you love, which was Lovecraft.
That's exactly.
Let's go. Lovecraft Country.
Lovecraft Country. Yes, that a lot of people draw a comparison to Lovecraft Country. For sure. And it's because it's taking mythology that has existed and then telling it through the Black point of view, but also owning it in a new and different way. It's not just about taking like traditionally white characters and putting in someone Black. It's actually telling it through the lens of a community that we don't talk about a lot. 1920s Harlem Renaissance, right? How often do you talk about that? Same time when like the Tulsa Massacre happens. That's no coincidence. So it's a really interesting point of view. And I love that like 3 out of the 4 people in the creative team are Black. So it's like, it's got authenticity to it, and hopefully it keeps going. It's got more legs.
Do we know when that's supposed to be coming out as a series? Is that on hold because of?
It's going to be a movie. I'm secretly hoping that they pivot and make it into a series, because I think it lends itself more to a series, because the stories you can keep telling, and just there's so many characters. I don't know how you could cram them all into one movie, but no, there's no release date yet. They just announced it, I believe, in May of this year. It was announced that Regina King was connected to direct.
I was going to say, like, looking at it, it looked like it could quite easily be the next Umbrella Corp. Umbrella. Sorry,
Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, Umbrella Academy.
Yeah,
like that is a series. That this looks like it could quite easily be it. You got the kind of like cyberpunk feel. You got a bit of jazz in it and everything. It does look really cool. Yeah, really, really cool.
Oh, like if you guys can find it in the UK, highly recommend it. It's amazing.
I'm sure a giant corporation will have, will give us access to those books for a fairly cheap price, delivered the next day, for example.
In a convenient drone. And also, one thing I forgot to say is like it also has critical acclaim. Where I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Eisner Awards, so basically like the Oscars of the comic industry. In 2020, it won the best continuing series at the Eisner Awards. So people have been loving it. It's picking up like the kind of the big moment of movie release, and it's got critical acclaim. And the great part, circling back to what I said earlier, is that because these guys were this was published through Image, David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, Sanford Green, they're all gonna get paid. And that is huge, right? When the movie comes out, because you hear the stories about like all these people at Marvel, they don't get paid for like the big moments when these movies come out because everything's owned by Marvel. So it's kind of a cool story that way too.
There was one very recently with was it Hawkeye, where they used I don't know if you noticed the end credits. There's those drawings throughout. I think even in the opening credits.
It's from no, it's the end credits.
The end credits, right?
It's from a particular comic run of Hawkeye.
Yeah, actually, and the Tracksuit Mafia too. That's from Matt Fraction's run. Also, shout out Portland. That's his run, and it's a single story that's sort of out of continuity. And the odds of fraction getting paid for that are pretty slim. There's a pretty cool podcast about Ed Brubaker going on to, I think it was Fat Man Beyond or something, and talking about how he basically created the Winter Soldier, but he's never going to get paid for anything that the Winter Soldier does on the MCU because technically Bucky Barnes existed already, but he wasn't the Winter Soldier. So Marvel basically said, sorry, dude, not getting paid because that's not an original character. You didn't actually create the character, even though he basically did 99% of the job.
Those lawyers, they'll get you.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a good first one. I feel happy already. Who wants to go next? Unless they have any questions on JC's first appearance on the happiness list.
I felt like I kept it tight.
That was nice. That was great.
So good.
Didn't go over too long. All right.
Yeah, no. Made it interesting as well. I'm going to be looking that up to see where we can get it over here for sure.
Nice. I was going to say, my only question is, because I always like it in comic books, is there any comedy or is it quite serious all the time?
That's the thing. It is really dense, but actually, I'm glad you asked. There is one character that's pretty awesome. That's I believe is called Berg, and he's kind of their answer to Beast, where he's like the biggest, strongest guy, but is incredibly articulate. And then when you get his backstory, and there's a little spoiler there, he basically got the family owns like a library of like everything they've ever done, and there's just like history of family and so forth. He gets like locked into a room with like a bunch of books and gets left there for like ages. And he comes out with this like incredibly intellectual vocabulary. So every time he talks, no one knows what the hell he's saying because he's just like that advanced in his vocabulary. And it just creates for some cool, funny moments. But yes, it does get very deep very quickly. So it's just a little bit of comedy interspersed, but not as much as I'd like. So that's a good point.
All right, fair enough. Who would like to go next? Raise your hand. There you go. I feel like going with Dave. Yeah, go on, Dave.
Yeah,
Dave, go on.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't mind jumping in. My main that I wanted to highlight this year was Deathloop. I think I only played 2 brand new games this year, as I take time to work through my backlog, like we all do. One of them was the game that I got with my PS5, which was Ratchet and Clank, and then the other one I felt compelled to buy because of rave reviews about it, and that was Deathloop. So Deathloop is the most recent game from Arcane Studios, who also made Dishonored 1, 2, Death of the Outsider, and Prey. And they are owned by Bethesda, who's been bought by Microsoft. So if there's a sequel to this game, it's weirdly going to go from being a Sony exclusive to an Xbox exclusive.
And by the way, JC was shouting out to Portland. I'm going to shout out to my hometown because that's where Arcane Studio is from. So, you know, we'll get
Shouts.
We'll get it.
Shouts.
Shout out to Leo. Next.
And yeah, so this game was on my radar. I think it was on everyone's radar at some point because as the launch approached, they started to pepper the industry with lots and lots of trailers and all kinds of things to show off the game. But what wasn't clear was exactly what the game was. They had shown it off at a previous E3, and they spoke about how you had to murder certain main bosses, which is par for the course in a lot of games, a lot of action games, a lot of action shooters. But they also said that there was someone who would be hunting you. So while you're hunting down these boss characters, you're being hunted by a female character, a woman. And it wasn't clear whether that woman could be played by other players. It wasn't clear whether that was an NPC or what exactly the deal was with the game. But the game actually ended up having its best marketing from the people that played and reviewed the game. So the game comes out and it got a 10 from IGN, a 10 from GameSpot, and got really high scores from a lot of big publishers and channels and things like that. And so I was compelled to buy the game full price. Rarely happens. Bought it full price, started playing the game, and it is just, presentation wise, it is just magical. It's based in the 70s, super colorful. The music is amazing. And then you start to get to know some of the characters, and like there are some really, really good performances. Colt Van is the main character. He's played by Jason E. Kelly. And then that assassin that is chasing him around trying to kill him is Juliana Blake, played by Ozioma Akaga. And they have a little back and forth, a bit of banter every day in the game. And the conversations that they have are just brilliant. The way that they sort of help to piece together the story, which is really mysterious. And then when you unearth more and more facts about them, it becomes even more intriguing. The game works based on a loop of life and death. So you start the day in the morning, you wake up on the beach, you don't know how you got there, you don't know why you're there, and you don't know who anyone else is, right? And then you play through the day and you get to choose where you go in the morning, around noon, in the afternoon, and in the evening. So you can choose from 4 different levels at each of those times, right? And different things are going on in different places at different times. So you might start a story in one place and then pick it up like 2 time cycles later on and try and piece together all these different mysteries which branch out and come together in the end. And it's just such a fun game, first and foremost. Such an interesting story and such a brilliant concept. And when all of those things came together, it was for sure my choice as the game of the year. I won't spoil any more of it, just so that anyone that plays it gets to unfold that mystery. But it's got so many interesting things about it, and that is why it's my thing of the year.
Is it because they were all dead from the plane crash and they all landed on the same location? But not really, they were not really dead all along. They're just waiting for the other people to also.
And there's white polar bears and a bunker with numbers. And in the end, none of it really matters. It didn't really matter, did it?
Yeah.
No, none of it really.
No. None of that. No. Ask the important questions always. Yeah.
Hey, I'm a Lost defender. I will defend Lost.
I will defend
all day long
till I die. So my main question for those, because obviously it's a first-person shooter, how does it play? How does it handle? Because that's also a very important part of those types of games.
Yeah, it's fast. It's a little bit raw. It's not. You don't feel like a pro handling a gun. And the character isn't a pro at handling a gun. So that's part of the reason. Also, the AI, which a lot of people criticized in the beginning, isn't the smartest of AI that you'll find. But I think part of the reason for that is, first of all, they're not like operatives that have been operating in the field for however many years like you would get in a typical first-person shooter. These are just people that are also on the island, and most of them are there to party. Right.
The island, yeah.
And it's an island. Sorry.
Spoiled.
And yeah, so they're not pros either, right? So you can get away with a lot, but also what that does is it lends itself to the sort of sandbox type of gameplay that you can get. So it makes it easier for you to sort of set up traps and do smart little things to kill characters or manipulate the environment in ways that it's not so punishing when you slip up or mess up. Okay. And because if you die, you have to start the day all the way from the beginning again. It's done in a way that it's quite difficult to ruin a run, ruin your day kind of thing. And I think it's better that way just because of how complicated it is to piece everything together.
So is it a bit like a roguelike? So once you die, you reset, but you can potentially keep some abilities and stuff.
Yeah, it does have some roguelike elements, but I wouldn't call it a full roguelike. It's like I said, it's very difficult to actually lose the stuff that you gain. And although everything does reset again in the morning, it's not, I don't know, you just don't feel like you're losing so much day after day. You can pretty much keep anything and everything that you find into the next day just by doing enough farming, essentially.
Okay. It's not like Returnal where you die and parts of your soul dies with it when you restart, because it's
not so much. I mean, you can lose stuff, but you would have to try for the most part. It's not that difficult to hold on to your stuff.
Just hold on for one more day.
Yeah.
So what's the variety like for enemies or weapons?
So what they do is they have certain weapon types. There's maybe 4 overarching weapon types, like pistols, SMGs, there's a nail gun, and you have shotguns, and what's the other type? They're like larger, what do you call them? Like larger machine guns, more like assault rifles. And then there's 2 or 3 variations within each, outside of the nail guns, where there's only 1. Then you have about 4 or 5, no, there's more than that. There's maybe 7 or 8 specialist weapons, which you can get from various side missions or from bosses and things like that. And then what they have is a perk system. So you can equip like trinkets to your weapon, which I think each weapon can have 3. And those scale up in complication and effectiveness as you go up. And then you have a loadout which you carry for each part of the day. So you can be like, okay, I'm gonna be stealthy when I do this part of the day. I'm gonna choose my silenced pistol, and I'm gonna equip it with some ranged perks so that I can shoot people in the head from far away. And that's how I'm gonna go through this part. And then the next one, you might be more gung ho, a bit more run and gun. So I'm gonna grab an SMG and a shotgun, and I'm gonna go in guns blazing. You can also customize your own character as well in a similar way, where you have little things that you can equip, and then that adds variety to how you want to play as well.
Yeah, no, because I was curious, because obviously a lot of these first-person shooter games, sometimes it's you get a shotgun and that's it. There's nothing you can do with it. It only acts a certain way and stuff. But no, it's cool to hear that there's all this different customization, and you have to really think about how to approach a certain day. So I'm guessing like nighttime, you may have to be a bit more stealthy because of spotlights and stuff like that. Whilst daytime, you probably want to go, like you say, guns blazing. Is the enemy variety just random people, or is there like a bit more to it?
It's mostly just random people.
Right.
It's not like you have certain types of enemy that are going to flank you, or sometimes there might be people on the roof. You don't know what guns they're going to have, so they might have a sniper rifle, for example, and be on the roof. There are sniper rifles as well, I didn't mention that. But for the most part, it is just random people with random weapons, outside of the 8 bosses who are particular characters in themselves. They have their own backstories. They interact with each other. So reading some of their interactions are some of the more entertaining parts of the game, and the relationships between them and stuff like that, and their relationship with the main characters. And then you have Juliana, who is the assassin that she's head of security on the island, basically. And she's the one that can pop up at any time in any mission and follow you around. And she can basically have any of the special guns that I mentioned before. So she will pop up, you'll get a thing coming across your screen. And at that point, you can't leave the mission without either hacking like an antenna, a satellite, to allow all the doors to be unlocked, or by killing her, or both. And she has access to basically all the good stuff that you have access to. So in the beginning, she's like a massive threat to you because you don't have anything great. You haven't gone through the day enough to pick up some of the better weapons and stuff. And she's a huge threat to you. But as you start picking up better and better weapons, she becomes a little bit more easier to deal with. But she's basically a mirror image of you later on in the game. So she has access to a bunch of stuff, and she is probably the most dynamic enemy you'll come across, because she'll turn up with randomized loot as well. Randomized loot and randomized personal abilities, which are the same abilities you can get your hands on.
Okay, FPS with a twist. I'm gonna be £30 out of pocket again, thanks to that, because I was on the fence and I'm not. Any questions from anyone, or shall we move on to James? Oh, JC, you got one.
I've got a question. So, as the non-gamer, and for all the audience that is non-gamer, here are the questions that I'm going to ask. So, 1, is it hard?
Not to me, but I'm also someone that
I'm
plays
not
hard
noob,
games.
so it's not hard to be.
I mean, I'm 2 times champions. I mean, come on.
It's not considered a hard game, no. And if you had played or bounced off one of Arcane's games before, it's purposely been made easier than any of their prior games. I think their prior games would punish you for not playing stealthily. But this game, literally, there's writing on the walls that tells you to be more relaxed, be more free in how you play the game. If you want to go in guns blazing, go ahead, just kill them all, type of thing. And yeah, it's a lot more lenient than most of your shooters would be. They don't expect you to be a pro. No one in the game is a pro.
Okay, cool. That's
but you
awesome.
could get overwhelmed if you go in and there's like, try and fight 10 people at once. You'll quickly die or find yourself in trouble.
Nice. Just a thing to add, I was looking through the Wikipedia, and I just thought it was really cool that they're saying the main character draws a lot of inspiration from Denzel Washington's character in the Book of Eli. But at the same time, that the dialogue, they try to make it like very Quentin Tarantino-esque dialogue. So that's why I'm like, I'm kind of down for this one, dude. Like, it sounds really good.
Yeah. I think the Denzel Washington's a bit of a reach because that character was quite deep. But I think he's on a mission, and he is very steadfast in that mission and trying to stick to that mission. Even if he starts from a position of absolute ignorance. I guess that's the only link to Denzel's character in the Book of Eli. But yeah, the Tarantino style is definitely, you'll see a lot more of that from the beginning.
Nice.
It's really fun. The dialogue is absolutely awesome.
Yeah. And soundtrack more like rock, hip hop, ambient, or like, what's the soundtrack like?
It varies. There is a little bit of like soft rock, pop kind of stuff. But like I said, it's all 70s influence. So even like something that you would really appreciate, JC, on that front is the decor. When you go to inside areas and look at just the decor and how so 70s it is. Like, it's very, even the way that they're dressed as well. It's kind of like cyber related and 70s, and all the colors everywhere, the disco influences and stuff like that. It's a really really well presented game.
Yeah, no, I was looking through images. It looks super great. Like the colors, just the way they use them. And once again, Wikipedia mentions that they took a lot of inspiration from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the movie, the new Guy Ritchie version. And that's a great looking movie, like style wise, plot aside. So cool. Nice, dude. Good one.
Get yourself a PS5, JC. Get it. All right, cool. Let's move on to the man in yellow. Oh, no, man, that's me. The man surrounded in yellow with a yellow background. James, take it away.
Okay, so my main pick is Shang-Chi, The Legend of the
controversial.
Ten Rings.
Controversial for me. Go on.
Controversial.
No, it's a
yes,
positive podcast. It's a positive episode.
So don't fall asleep whilst I talk about it like you did with the film.
Twice.
Says more about Tom than the film.
Wait, what?
So I fell asleep. Okay, so it came. Picture this: we all sat on the sofa. It was on Disney Plus. When okay, Shang-Chi, let's go. Fell asleep halfway through. Woke up for the last bit. Obviously, at that point, I didn't understand what the hell was going on. I went, okay, fine. Let's forget about it. I'll watch it again by myself. Watched it again last week, couple of weeks ago. Fell asleep at the exact same point. Woke up at the exact same point. I had to. To which point I went, okay, what is wrong with this movie, or what's wrong with me? Which one do I pick? So obviously I pointed fingers at the movie, not myself. I went back and watched it. I went, oh, that makes sense. That's all right. Cool. Yes. Anyway, not the point. Positive. All good vibes. Let's go.
Okay. Well, so a bit of backstory for this one for me. So when the first trailer came out for this and when it was announced, I had no interest for this film whatsoever. I didn't know anything about Shang-Chi as a character. And I saw the trailers and I thought the trailers just looked crap, utterly crap, all the way up to the point of when the film was released. So I didn't even bother with it. Then one night it was on Disney Plus and I was like, oh, sure, I'll throw it on. So I was instantly ready to be disappointed for this film.
It's the best way to get in there.
It is.
Yeah.
To be fair, for this, it was because I honestly think this is a 9 out of 10 film. This is outstanding for what it's done. So just as a general plot basis, this kind of connects quite strongly to the Iron Man films regarding the 10 rings, because the 10 rings kidnap Iron Man and create Iron Man in a way, but they weren't the real 10 rings. They're all working underneath the Mandarin, who again wasn't the real Mandarin. So this is leading to the real Mandarin, even though he doesn't actually call himself the Mandarin. I'll re-butcher some pronunciation, so I hope I don't offend anyone. Is it Xie? Is that how you say his name? XU is his kind of like full first name. Anyway, Shang-Chi's dad. So
yeah,
we'll call him that. Shang-Chi's dad.
Just call him the Mandarin.
That's all. He, for like thousands of years ago, he finds these 10 rings. And these 10 rings are completely different to how the comics preside them. So they give him these awesome powers. He is a war dog. He creates a whole army. He takes over. And it gives him some kind of immortality as well. So he looks as handsome as he did when he was back then to he does now. He's taking over Asia and he comes across a magical forest and he finds a woman that he falls in love with instantly because she's pretty much his like equal in combat. So she ends up being Shang-Chi's mother. And they have 2 kids. There's Shang-Chi. There's Shang-Chi's sister, because I'm not going to pronounce her name because I can't. But yeah, so they have a family, and then it just goes straight into Shang-Chi being a bit of a deadbeat. He's got a really crappy job. He's got his best friend Katie, who he's grown up with, and they've got this fantastic friendship. And one of the things I was just pointing out is it's great that they throw a little bit like they have some kind of crush, but there's not like a full romance. It's just that they're really good friends. Yeah. And I think that's such a good thing that there's no romance or anything. It's just 2 friends having a great time. Then later on, Shang-Chi's history kind of creeps up on him. And you're introduced to some wacky characters like, is it Razor Claw? His name? Yeah, Razor Fist. Razor Fist.
Yeah.
Who has no fist, who actually has like a blade. But yeah, so he comes in, he ruins his day, and it reveals that Shang-Chi's got these awesome kung fu moves, and then he has to find his sister to find some connecting to it was a necklace.
Yeah.
And basically to try and hide from the father because they know how evil the father is. Later on, father finds them, brings them home. They reveal the location of this magical forest, which takes them to an alternative universe where dragons are real. And that was an instant hit to me because I fucking love dragons.
I love dragons. Give me
dragons. So there's dragons, there's monsters that look like Pokemon. So
I thought of you. I thought of you when that happened. I went, wait, what is going on?
No, I was just like
Detective Pikachu. Was it something like that?
It was better, much better. I was saying to my dad, like this is what Pokemon should be. But anyway, and then there's this whole philosophy of this like demon that can steal souls, and it's been locked away, and dad's been brainwashed to think that the wife is hidden in there because the wife died earlier on. They break the demon out, and there's this massive fight, and just awesome. And
we forgot to say spoilers if you haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all right. You've got it. It's all right. It's been a while since it's out.
Yeah.
And also Ben Kingsley playing Trevor was just a highlight. This is the Mandarin from Iron Man 2, but this is when he really gets out there and is proper himself, and he's one of the best characters. And even Shim Lee, who plays Shang-Li, he's just fantastic. Like an actor that's come out of nowhere, and he just nailed that character, and he is Shang-Chi. Like, I can't think of anyone else.
If you go back to Trevor, it's got that one scene that made me laugh out loud when he's talking about why he became an actor. It's like, I saw those monkeys riding those horses, and wow.
It's Planet of the Apes, wasn't it?
Planet of the Apes is like, if they could get those monkeys to be such good actors, I want to be an actor too. Which was funny. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's fine. But yeah, no, just the film as a whole, it had such good pacing. It took you to so many different locations, and part of the problem with a lot of the Marvel films is they take you to so many locations. And at least to me, a lot of times I feel like, why are they here? There's no real explanation, and it goes on a little bit too long. Whilst this film, it takes you to probably about 10 different locations, and there's an explanation about exactly why they're there. And you instantly know, yeah, okay, that makes sense why they're there as well. And the other cool thing is that it's not really connected to any other Marvel films so much. Obviously, a little bit of Iron Man, but, you know, it could have easily been a standalone film. And for the fact that probably 95% of the cast is Asian as well, which is a massive thing for American film as well. So yeah, just fantastic. Honestly, it's really jumped up there to probably be my second favorite Marvel film ever.
What's your first?
Captain America, the first film. I think that's such a great story as a whole. Again, doesn't have to be Marvel film, just like a generally great story.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. And here's why. Now, there's one thing I've noticed, though, in the last couple of Marvel movies. It's nothing to do with Shang-Chi as a character or anything. Is that what the hell is with those scaffoldings in every single like buildings? Like, so if you watch that nice fight scene in Shang-Chi, like, then where are they? Are they in Hong Kong or they in Macau? Can't remember where they are. It's like this when they fight these guys and the dad comes. Guess I can't remember where.
I think isn't it like Singapore or Indonesia?
Or Singapore? I can't remember. I think it's in Macau.
I thought it was Las Vegas or somewhere like it was like it's like a really wacky place. Like I can't actually remember what they call it.
So that's when they brought in to fight against a bunch of other guys, right? And so they're in that building. And anyway, there's that big scene where they fight on scaffoldings. And why? Like, you've got this massive cities with all the lights and everything. It's beautiful. And in that
Macau.
But Macau, yeah. So in terms of choreography, that looks nice, right? They jump from one bit to another and stuff. But They do that also in the new Spider-Man movie where they go to the Statue of Liberty and it's full of scaffolders. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, why are you trying to?
It's like you say, it's for the choreograph of the fighting because you can do so much because you can hang from it, spin around with it. You know, you can fall and catch on and all those types of things.
Things can break without much like fallout from it, if you will.
Yeah, structurally,
safety for the ones below.
Exactly.
The second one, and I thought about JC on that one. It was the last scene, the big fight with the dragons and shit. Why is it all gray? Why is everything so gray? Like, it's China, it's beautiful. They're in the Pokemon city there. Everything was colorful and green.
It's gray because it's the end of the world to them, because there's
it can be colorful. The end of the world doesn't have to be that nasty.
You come into this beautiful place because it is all color, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You know, you got all these flowers, trees, all these magical creatures, and obviously the big dooming evil is coming. So, you know, you got the gray, you got the clouds, so that symbolizes the end.
Yeah, sure, fair enough.
Just a quick one, back to the scaffolding. If you notice, this movie has a lot of homages. I actually think that that's because of Jackie Chan movies.
Yes, I thought of that too.
A lot of Jackie Chan movies have that scaffolding thing, and then it's like it's nice and playful and lets him show off what he does. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more of a little homage, because there's other homages to other movies in that one for sure.
That's true. I did think about it when I was like, it reminded me of those 70s, 80s Hong Kong movies where Jackie Chan, I was going to say JC, but swinging on scaffolds.
I'll take that any day, buddy.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the guy who plays Shang-Chi's dad, he does give himself an English name, Tony, so that helps.
Cool.
He did a lot of like martial arts films and all that type of stuff as well, and a lot of drama, and he really brought that to his character as well. Like, he was fantastic. Like, a lot of times you wonder why someone's a villain, and he's just so good at being a villain, and you just know exactly what brings it up.
Isn't the guy who played the dad, the actor, wasn't he in a bunch of Jackie Chan movies as well? I think he was like an extra. He was in a bunch of scenes with Jackie Chan. I think I read something along those lines, but that's to be confirmed.
Possibly.
Shit.
While we're on the subject, as someone that does Kung Fu and likes martial arts movies, it was so good to finally have good martial arts in the MCU. Yes. So refreshing. That scaffolding scene was excellent. Shang-Chi isn't the best fighter of the people fighting. I think that probably goes to that main henchman that he had to
the guy with the mask
to fight off. That dude was pretty damn awesome. But yeah, we've seen the best martial arts in a and because of that, the best combat, I think, in a Marvel movie in Shang-Chi, and that was really freaking refreshing after the crap show that was the Iron Fist.
Yeah, and they seem to have taken a lot of the tropes from Iron Fist and brought it into this film as well, or even just the Shang-Chi character, because like Shang-Chi, from my understanding from the comics, didn't really have many powers. He's just really good at martial arts. Yeah, but now he's got these 10 rings that's like overcharged him with some severe power. One thing I do want to just make a note is that, my God, was it funny? So many scenes were just so hilarious. Funny. Like the karaoke scenes are just great. Just everything just works so well.
Yeah, and I think they knew they were going to go that route by casting her name escapes me, his best friend.
Aquafina.
Yeah. That's what she does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, sorry, just mine's a quick one. It's got the weirdest posts and credit scene though, with Captain Marvel just going, "Yeah, I don't know what this is. Okay, bye." I'm like, "What? Why are you here? Don't come back. Like, just leave the Hulk do all the talking, but like, don't bring that bad energy around here, Captain Marvel." Weird one.
Speaking of bad energy, Tom.
What?
No. I have to follow up on something about. I'm glad you brought up Aquafina, because I think that's kind of the buried lead here. She is amazing in this movie. Aquafina. Like, it's so refreshing. And I think, David, you and I have talked about a few times about like the buddy comedy that never played out with Falcon Winter Soldier. And like the fact that they weren't romantically connected in this movie actually makes it a buddy comedy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And Shang-Chi's a straight man and Aquafina is the reaction person. She reacts to everything and does it in just the best way that makes it so fun to watch. So no, that I thought was a super highlight. Seeing Michelle Yeoh come back and do that role again that she did in like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon with those fight scenes, that was such a highlight for me. The choreography behind the fights, I thought was just spectacular because like almost no CGI, and it was that like hanging sort of like fluidly in the air sort
Even
of
the
thing.
dragons?
They Crouching
real?
Tiger.
Yeah, the real dragons. Did you not know?
The real dragons.
Oh,
Fuck.
totally.
Yeah, that demon beast actually exists. Like,
That's a real place.
It was actually an extra in Godzilla and a few other monster movies.
Was he an extra? Was he in there?
This is his big break. It's like he's getting that Marvel money now. He's going to take out
screw
a few.
you, Godzilla. I'm on Marvel pay.
Oh, you should see him. He took out some of his own scales and put them in like gold scales now. He's like, he's all blinged out. But also another thing is this was shot by Bill Pope. Bill Pope shot The Matrix. So also it's a very good looking movie. Yeah. And I will say, up until they get to the CGI. So you're right, Tom. That CGI scene.
No, the CGI is brilliant because it looks like Pokemon.
Yes,
it's a good Pokemon film.
It's good Pokemon film. If you take that and just make it a Pokemon short film, it works perfectly.
And on that front, in terms of the presentation, one part that I did really like, it's not all real, but when they're fighting, when he meets his future wife and they're fighting just outside that area, it reminded me a lot of, and when Shang-Chi goes in and trains with his auntie as well, it reminded me a lot of House of Flying Daggers. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Yeah, another visually stunning martial arts film that I would recommend. And that it gave me those vibes just with the way that they use the wind and
I was going to say like the wind and the leaves
elements
and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. No, just a great one. And the other thing is that we talk about is I personally think the bus fight scene, that's top 10, 15 Marvel scenes that I like. It's like, that's so rewatchable. Like, I absolutely love that scene.
Yeah, funny as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And set in a real place.
Was it a little bit of a Dragon Ball vibe when he goes and pull those rings out of the monster's chest? It almost feels like he's about to do a fire. It was just me, maybe.
That is part of the inspiration because they want to power him and hype him up and all that type of stuff. So I think you can see him being very Goku in the future.
It's gonna have yellow hair
doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, please. All right, let's move on from Shang-Chi because it's almost the end of it. So I'll move on to myself. Yes. The other man in yellow. Look at that lovely jumper. I've got that. Shout out to Nike for providing me with the freshest gear. It's a llama. Anyway, let's go back to video games. Not sponsored. Nike. I mean, if we knew anyone that worked in Nike,
I know.
Sponsor us.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Throw some Nike money at it. There you go.
Yes. Anyway, we're staying in the Marvel universe, and we're combining the last two best of the year, which is video games and Marvel movies. My pick is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy on PS5. And again, I'm combining what James and Dave have said, which is yes.
Sorry to stop you. It's not my podcast.
No
spoilers, please. I will play this.
I'm not
year
spoiling.
At some point.
It's a spoilers-free look at the game. Okay, so same than James. When I first saw the first images, the trailer, the reveal, gameplay, all that stuff on YouTube, I went, nah, don't like it. Don't want to do anything. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it. I'm not interested. It looks ass. But thanks to Black Friday, I said, I'm going to go and get it because it's cheap and it looks beautiful. And I'm glad I did, because even though he came out, he got released, I think, towards the end of October 2021. quite late, close to Christmas. It's where you want to make your cash. It makes sense. It still gave me a lot of hours of straight up fun and amusement. So, what is it? Well, you know what it is. It's basically what the second movie of the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 should have been in terms of storyline. A lot of people are saying it's that good in terms of storytelling, and they're right. They're actually very right. So what is it? This is going to shock a lot of kids that are listening to this. It's a single player game. There's no multiplayer. There's none of that business. Well, yeah, I know, James. It's so if you remember,
I can't stand for this.
If you remember the other game that came out, I think it was it 2 years ago, the Avengers, the Square Enix Avengers, which was a game it was a game as service. There was a lot of microtransactions. There's a lot of stuff going on, funny business in there that got players riled up, and people complaining about, what are you doing? You could have done a single player thing. You could also do a multiplayer with it. That'll be fine. So this is a linear single player game, which is great because usually those ones work well. Like PlayStation and Sony in particular, they've done this time and times again when they've released a bunch of games like that, like God of War, Uncharted is something like that in the same vein, and they're all absolute bangers of games. So in this one, in the Guardians Part 2, I'm going to call it, but it's the Guardian video games. You play as Peter Quill, as Star-Lord, and you're trying to pay off your debts, and at the same time maybe save the universe. That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to spoil it for Dave. So that's where you go. So now the interesting part of this is that you play as Star-Lord only. So even though you're part of the Avengers, of the Guardians, you only ever control Peter Quill. So you go into a bunch of different worlds, you follow the story, which again, no spoilers, and you've got to recover some money. No spoilers. So the funny thing with this is that the combat is also very different. So you're controlling Peter Quill, you're in fight scenes, nothing new there, you're fighting a bunch of monsters, and then you have to give orders to the other Guardians to attack a specific monster. It's got this RPG element of this, or Japanese RPG elements where you go like, you go and do this. So obviously every single Guardian's got a different ability. So Groot obviously will go and dip his roots through the ground and just grab an enemy and, grab onto it whilst you can go and shoot it. Drax will go and be the powerful guy that will just go in there and just beat up enemies. Gamora will be the fast one, climbing up walls and just slicing people. Who else? What's his face? Rocket will be obviously the one that's going to go around and upgrade your weapons and do a lot of jokes. So that's that. There's a lot of personality whilst you're playing. It's not, a revolutionary game, but because it's got that going for it in terms of whilst you're fighting, there's a bunch of nonsense going on with the dialogues mainly. This makes it fun. The script, like I said, is absolutely amazing. Like, it should have been Guardians 2. I'm not saying. And even though it's funny, it does go into the backstory of Star-Lord. Well, Peter Quill, you see him as a 13-year-old with his mum, living with his mum. And there's a lot of, again, funny things happening, but then you see another side of his mother. Because I think in the movie, that like they don't really deep dive into her story. Like, you see, so it was the second one, right, where you see the dad and you see her like just driving around, and she just disappears. And in the first one, obviously, she passes away pretty much within the first 5 minutes. What else do I want to say? Game mechanics, I've talked about that. It's got amazing graphics. It's got great music, and the music comes into play then when you, again, you're on the fighting fields, you're fighting a bunch of enemies. You tell the other guys what you want them to do, and then suddenly you might be in a difficult position where Drax will get his ass kicked. You would get shot a lot by enemies. You can do what's called a huddle, where suddenly you press R3 or whatever, they all come around you. So you see them looking at you, and you've got a little text box that pops up, and you can do a little pep talk and say, we're going to crush we're going to crush our enemies, or let's try to be smart, something like that. So you pick one of the two. Star-Lord would go into a little speech, and then what has happened is that your team becomes insanely powerful. They all have like this new attacks and new things, and you turn the tide around. But this is where the music comes in. They've got a whole bunch of songs, famous songs from the 80s, and suddenly you start playing, listening to Europe or Blondie or Motley Crue, whilst you're just kicking ass. And that's just, it's so cool. Like Bonnie Tyler. Yes, Take On Me, that's the sort of music you listen to. Billy Idol, Starship, all this kind of guys. Wham! I think I played yesterday, and I was like, suddenly this Wake Me Up Before You Go, and I'm just blasting out guys, and I'm like, what the hell am I playing? So that's that. I'm gonna try to keep it as short as possible. So it's only 20 hours long, which is great because it doesn't take 10 hours, 100 hours to finish. There's no multiplayer, which is great. You just want to play old school on your console by yourself, no friends, #lonely. No microtransaction, no game as services. It is quite the opposite in terms of the experience you had on the Avengers. This is the opposite. This is what it should have been. And I think that's it. I'm done. This is the best game for me, 2021. This is the funniest one, and the one that made me forget about life, which is what a game is supposed to be, right? Like a movie, it's supposed to forget about anything else. Take you somewhere. Any questions? Open the floor. Comments.
I just wanted to point out that it was made by Eidos Montreal, who made the last couple of Deus Ex games. And they're a really good studio, who actually also did a little bit of work to help Crystal Dynamics on the Avengers game. But obviously went in a completely different direction.
Like JC.
Yeah. I'm just happy for them because there was I think with their last game, they rubbed fans the wrong way in a similar way to Avengers, with microtransactions and all of this like marketing and non-gaming related stuff that was going to be part of their last Deus Ex game. And because of that, it kind of tarnished their reputation a little bit. A lot of it was stuff that was forced on them by the publishers. So I'm glad that they got the chance to just make the game they wanted to make it the way they wanted to make it, and just sort of clear their reputation a little bit, because they're really talented and they make really good games.
Yeah, they do. And the Avengers game kind of, I don't know, I was very disappointed in Square Enix with what they've done. And I'm quite glad they didn't get to do that one. It was given to somebody else, another studio. So again, great one. I think it's on sales right now, so you can go and pick it up at some point. It's fairly inexpensive.
For a lot of awards as well, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
I think it's nominations for the Game Awards and stuff. Mm-hmm. I haven't played it, but I watched a lot of the clips. So I know somewhat of the story, but the things I had seen from it, it looks like they combined a good solo story game, but they've put a lot of the telltale aspects into it, where it's a lot of dialogue options, and there's apparently quite a big scene where you can either choose to sneak around and avoid a fight completely, or just go guns blazing and just having loads of different options in it as well.
Because it's linear, you'll still end up in the same place you're meant to be going. But what you pick as an option during those little chats in between action can change the gameplay itself. So yeah, like I know which one you're saying. It's like the one where you can go as a stealth mode and you can just literally shoot no one, or you can go in there and just turn it into a massive brawl, basically. So it's quite interesting that way.
Voice acting, because to me that's a big one for Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Just like those voice actors just brought so much to those characters. Like, how's the voice acting in this?
It's really good. It's very well done. It's voice acting plus script, so both are great, and the timing and everything is also really well done. It took me about, I'll say, 15-20 minutes of actual gameplay before I accepted the guy being Peter Quill as not being what's his face again? The actor, Chris Pratt. Like it was because I associate now both Chris Pratt and obviously like most people do. And like for me, it took me a little bit, not too long, but then that's how good the voice acting is, because the guy literally just makes you forget about Chris Pratt. So it's all done. I think Gamora as well is good, and Drax obviously, because you're used to Batista's performance as Drax. Also, he sounds fairly similar to him, so it's not as much of a gap as what you would expect. So it's kind of similar. All the actors sound the same, pretty much, except for Chris Pratt, who's not there. He's got his very specific voice to him. So no, it's good because obviously again, script is good, so the voice acting is going with it.
In particular, Groot, right? Because they pay Vin Diesel the big money for that role.
I know. Can I literally got anyone to do that? But no.
Literally, trained monkey dude could have done that.
Trained monkey, yeah, I know, right? Hey, they could have got The Rock, but maybe better. Right, so if there's nothing else, shall we just quickly go through our mentions? Don't need to elaborate anything else, and you just drop some names in there. Let's go around the same way we went. So JC, what else you got? Fairly quickly.
Yes, thank you. Caveats. Okay, so for me, the other one I wanted to talk about was Modoc, the show on Hulu. So it's one of those shows that came out of the blue, and I had such little expectations. Just really small background on it. Modoc was supposed to be part of a group of shows that Hulu was going to launch called The Offenders, which is meant to be Howard the Duck, Tigra, Hitmonkey, and Modoc and somebody else. And they all got canned when Marvel Studios TV was basically closed down, and they said, well, it's going to be all part of the MCU now. And the only ones that survived were Modoc and Hitmonkey. Hitmonkey, I'm lukewarm on. Modoc, so much love for.
Modoc is fun.
It is so funny, heartwarming. Like the animation's awesome. It was the same animation studio that did Robot Chicken. So it's got Patton Oswalt having a great time playing Modoc. And Modoc's got a Mexican American wife. Done. I'm done.
Sold. You've done it.
Sold.
You got 1 more minute to plug in your other mention if you want to.
Yes. And then the other one is if for anybody that liked What If, the Marvel shows, there's a show on Apple TV called For All Mankind. And it's the biggest what if scenario of what if a Russian cosmonaut would have landed on the moon before the Americans, and the Americans never saw it coming. And basically it's about the societal impact of that in the US, because the moon race was such a big moment for the Americans to push forward technology and just like gain confidence and stuff. And what that does to the national psyche. Super interesting show. Cannot say enough good things about it.
For Mankind is one of the best things I've watched last year. It's just really, really good.
Very good. Also flew under the radar totally, which I was so surprised at. Yeah.
Like most Apple TV shows do, because I don't think that many people have access to that, funny enough.
Yeah.
But definitely great. Who do we go with next? Dave.
It was me. So what were my honorable mentions? I had Invincible.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
Invincibles is the kids cartoon. Invincible, amazing TV show based on the graphic novel, which I also have a copy of actually after I watched it. It was bought for me for my birthday. Thank you. So I'll be tackling that at some point this year. But I mean, if you've seen it, you already know. It's incredible.
So good.
Goes in a direction that you don't normally expect from this kind of content. Very dramatic, very emotional, and still manages to be funny, still manages to keep you on your toes and going in unexpected directions. Still has some excellent fight scenes that you would hope to have in a superhero comic. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's Amazon Prime, and it's just an excellent piece of media.
2 seasons on Amazon Prime. And watch the last episode is just absolutely bananas. Episode of season 2. Just thinking about it. You don't remember? You take the tube. Is this only one season?
Yeah, I think
I feel like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I was like,
I think it's only one season, but I think they announced season 2.
They announced season 2,
yeah.
Is he only one season, really?
Yeah. But that subway scene is legit one of the most disturbing things that I've ever seen in animation. Yeah,
it's brutal.
It was messed up. Yeah,
there's a lot, and very graphic. So although it's a cartoon-based medium, it's not really for kids at all. Lots of swearing as well. And then the other one was Loki. I think I kind of blacked out and didn't even realize that all of the Marvel TV shows were this year.
Same.
All of them? Yeah, all of them. So I chose Loki. I could have easily chosen What If, just because that is a great concept and I love stuff like that. But I think Loki was my favorite. It's had and is going to have huge implications for the MCU. And for them to put that in a TV show shows how much that Marvel is invested in their TV content. It's just as must watch as the movie content at this point. So
absolutely.
Yeah, what I liked about Loki in particular was a lot of the dialogue. The dialogue and the banter between characters, I think, was the best of any Marvel content this year. And yeah, ends with an excellent finale and character reveal that we didn't really see coming in the slightest. We
Mephisto,
knew,
right?
Yeah, well, cat's out of the bag now.
Mephisto. He's in there.
Oh, how is it not? I thought it was him all the time.
Shit.
But yeah, another great show.
Yep. More Kid Loki, more Alligator Loki, and more with nail Loki, please.
It's like, all of the Lokis.
All the Loki variants. I just want shows of each of those. They're amazing.
Yeah.
All right, James, what you got?
So a bit of a random game, Shadowverse Champions Battle. Now, game devs, if you're out there, make demos for your game, because if there wasn't a demo for this game, I would never have picked it up. Now, this game brought me back to being a young teenager. I grew up playing the Yu-Gi-Oh games, and I always like card games and all this type of stuff. And they just became rubbish over the years. And this is like rekindled it massively. For those that don't know, Shadowverse is a mobile game, very similar to Hearthstone. It wasn't really that popular. They then made an anime somehow out of it. And then they made the game for the anime. And it's absolutely amazing. Fantastic game. If you're going into the Switch, just download the demo, give it a try. You got about a good 4 or 5 hours just on the demo, just playing that. So, worth it on that. But yeah, really, really great card game, really easy to pick up. And if you like Yu-Gi-Oh, if you like Hearthstone, all that type of stuff, you'll love this. Really, really great game. And my other one is the new Beast Wars Transformers comic book that came out, or comic book series that came out last year, because it was the 25th anniversary last year. And shockingly, there just hasn't been really any Beast Wars comic books throughout all the time it's been around. They had the series, they had Beast Machines, which was dreadful in my opinion. And then this comic book is absolutely fantastic. Great writing, great illustration for a good man called Josh, who I actually speak to a little bit on Twitter. He's a really cool guy. But it carries on it's the story of the first part of the series, but slightly different with new characters, and they're bringing in characters that are toys that never were in the series as well. So it gives like a bit of justice for some figures and stuff like that, which is really cool. And again, really funny, really good dialogue, and really worth doing. It's about 11, 12 issues so far. But yeah, fantastic comic book series. Definitely one to pick up.
Nice.
All right. And my turn to wrap it up. All right. So first one, I went and I actually had to double check a couple of things before I added it to the list. But yes, Justice League's the Snyder Cut.
Controversial
because it fixed a lot of the what's the word I want to use for the Josh Whedon cut? The
shit.
The pile of crap, the pile of hot excrement that was the Whedon cut. And the fact that it went on for what is it, a 4 hours thing? It was like, I can't remember how long it is, 3:45, whatever. Yeah. And I was like, this is too long. But then I watched it and I went, this is not long enough. I want more. Give me more 4:3 black and white, superhero stuff. But it wasn't black and white. So I was like, I want more of that. I want like a 6 hours freaking Batman vs Superman extended version. I want more. So I'm glad they finally got it out. I'm glad we got to see it. And I kind of want more of like director's cuts, things that got messed up, reworked. And then the second one, which is a couple part, one which is really grim that got released on Netflix, which was Midnight Mass. If you've not watched that, it's like you gotta be mentally fit for it. Like, because
I've heard, yep,
it's dark. It's like a lot of dark topics and a lot of great interaction between characters, and an ending that you'll be like, huh? What? And also you'll make you gotta be in a good place mentally to get onto that one. But I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil anything. The other one, going back to Marvel, WandaVision, because it slapped, talking like the kids on TikTok. That one slapped. And then one which got released on 2020, but I'm watching 2021. It's my podcast, so I'll do what I want. Truth Seekers, whatever. Truth Seekers, which is with what's his face? I'm gonna Google it live because I actually forgot their names. Nick Frost, Simon Pegg, together. So that's on Amazon Prime. There's one season. Yeah. It's one season. It's a paranormal comedy / there's got a couple scare jumps in it, which is quite fun. I found it funny. It got cancelled after one season. After I think it's about 8 episodes. 8 episodes, and it got cancelled by Amazon Prime because they're spineless. No, I think someone at some point will do a season 2. I think it's waiting to be picked up by, let's say, Netflix or not Disney, but like probably Netflix or somebody else like that. Maybe Apple TV will pick that up. It's funny, it's scary at times. It's got some crazy ideas, just like Nick Frost and Simon Pegg would have. Yeah. You can tell they've written that, and I think they've directed a couple. There's a bunch of very famous actors in there. You'll find out. You go and get it. You go and watch it. It's well worth your time. I thought that was pretty funny. Like one of them that flew under the radar, nobody even heard about. But it's got good reviews online from people who watched it. But then I think critics were like, no, it's not fun. So,
30-minute episodes or full hour episodes?
I believe they're 30s.
Yes. Yeah, 8 episodes, 30. I'm in.
Yeah, I think they're 30s. I'm not entirely sure. They might be 45s even.
Okay.
Not 29s. Okay, yeah, they're 30s. Oh. So it goes by super quick. The storyline, don't expect anything like high. Like it's quirky on purpose. It's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. You don't expect anything that's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. No, sometimes it doesn't, and it's funny. So that's just that. Right. Anything else from anyone? I think we should wrap it up because it's been
just one quick
long time. Oh my God, there's always one. And
this podcast, man. This podcast.
True.
Some of my favorite nerd content. I avoided your Invincible breakdown and then listened to it after I'd watched it. Good. Amazing stuff.
Thank you.
I also listened to the interview with HTGD. Great stuff. It's introducing me to a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise picked up on or gotten into. And then even the episodes that I was on, it made me look at things in ways that I wouldn't have looked at. So thanks to you, Tom. Thanks to you, JC. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Oh yeah, we'll be back. Look at that. That's a good way. Anyway, thanks, Dave. That was your last appearance on the podcast, so that's a good way of. It's a good out right there. No, I already got you fired from another podcast. So.
No, but also shout outs to all the collaborators last year that came on the pod to like put up with us and talk way too long about some stuff, but it was a lot of fun. So thanks for everybody coming on.
Yep. Thanks to the kids also for joining in. They've been in for once, and that's a great segue to what we've got going with JC, which we'll get the kids back on at some point. Yeah, I think maybe next week or the week after, or whatever. We'll see. We'll talk offline. Yep. Get them back in, because you know what? Kids, they do good numbers every time you put them in there. It's easy money, That's why we have kids in the first place. Yeah. Anyway,
exploitation.
Shocking, obviously.
Because we're getting paid so much to do this.
So much. Hey, that Nike sponsorship.
Nike money.
Hey, you guys are getting paid.
Shit. Well, anyway, bye.
And on that
note, anyway, cool. Thank you everyone for listening to another episode. We'll be back some point next week, maybe, surely. And do follow us on social media. We're everywhere. That thing called Facebook or Meta World Peace. If you know, you know. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I like dropping that one. We're on Twitch. We're on YouTube. Yes, YouTube. Go and follow us on YouTube, man. What the hell? I can't crack 50 on there.
Wow.
Oh, God. It's really depressing. It makes me sad. Did you want to make me sad? No.
3,000 on the IG, though.
Oh, 3,000 on Instagram, dude. Those bots following us. It's amazing. Those Russian bots just out there getting us. So do follow us, do download our episodes, which are available on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere, like Tesco's, like they have a little box experience, like day out thing. There's one catching up with a day out experience thing. It's just a direct download link to hang out with us for the entire day. It's not a thing.
That random guy just shouting outside.
Catching up with the nerds.
No, way. He disappears. Catching up with the nerds.
That's all.
It's like, screw social. We're just doing town criers from now on. Yeah. Like, we're going to hire someone in every town to shout, catching up with the nerds.
Buskers doing the theme song.
That's next level marketing shit right there. Anyway, thank you, JC, for coming on. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, James, from How to Game Differently. Also,
thank you for having me back.
And watch his stuff on YouTube and subscribe to his Twitter and all the social media he's on. And thanks, Dave, for showing up one more time and doing basketball stuff with us as well. Go and subscribe, download the episode, podcast and stuff. And on our other YouTube channel, which is Grit and Grime Basketball Podcasts, And if you like Twitter, we also on Twitter. Oh, we've got the OnlyFans Grit and Grime stuff. You don't know about it, Dave, but you will. Extra content, which is extra, is on there. $5 a month. All right, cool.
Trying to get me fired from my real job as well, are we?
Oh, employers. Dave's employers. It's not true. We don't OnlyFans. You porn, though. That's what you follow. Anyway, go on. We'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Later.
Bye.